Joining me today are King County Council Member Larry Gossett, Margaret Paisler of the Seattle City Council, Councilmember Licata, Councilmember Conlon, Councilmember Drago, and just coming in, Councilmember Richard McIver. And I'm told that Peter is in the wings. Well, here he comes. All right. Let me say that written testimony is also welcome. If you'd like to express an opinion in writing, please fill out the green comment form that we provided you at the back. There are more of them available at the sign-in table, and you can put it in the box at the door, or you can mail it to us as you choose. You may notice in one of the comment forms I added a line. I've always loved that bumper sticker about practice random acts of kindness, or whatever it says. One of the forms you'll notice says that please feel free to identify any particular acts of heroism or compassion or kindness that you saw on either side in the events of last week. The mayor's office has provided, and we have put out at their request, a list of frequently asked questions. The council is making it available to those who want it. This entire meeting is being taped for use on Seattle TV, our public cable station. They will broadcast it as soon as possible. Those of you who've kept an eye on channels 21 and 28 have seen that the hearings of last week have played repeatedly, and my guess is they played it a dozen times already. The meeting is also being audio taped. We want to thank Virginia Anderson, for the head of the Seattle Center, for her promptly putting this venue together for us. Some rules of the road for this public portion of the meeting. Council members, including Larry Gossett from the King County Council, are all going to have a few brief remarks. Then we'll begin the public comment portion of the meeting. Each speaker, as has been our practice since time immemorial, will have 3 minutes to speak. If you have video to show, we scurried and found some way to show video. I'm not sure how it's going to work, but we've made that possible. We will also accept videos, audio tapes, or written statements for the review, for later review. We're going to ask that people who spoke previously wait to the end. And I'm aware that, I'm sorry, was there no separate list for George? There's not a separate list. I guess I'll have to ask you to, you know who you are, right? I would ask you as a matter of conscience to speak after the others if you've spoken previously, just because it's only fair that those who have not spoken get their opportunity. The speakers will be called in the names in the order that your names appear on the sign-up sheet. Please respect the 3-minute limit. We ask that people with posters and signs not block the view of the people behind them. That doesn't look like that's happening tonight. Any shouting or disruptive behavior that prevents speakers from being heard will not be allowed. If the speakers can't be heard at any point, we'll have to adjourn the meeting. That's just all we can do. Please fill out the green form. One other important thing. The Seattle City Council has created a new website with a form provided to enable you to give comments. And you'll find that the website form allows you to speak to several different issues and put your comments in. To access that form, you'll find that the URL, the website, is listed on the agenda, which is available at the back. Thank you again to the Seattle Center. Larry, do you want to begin, and we'll come down the line, and then we'll get to the public witnesses.
Okay. As Jim said, my name is Larry Gossett. I'm a member of the Metropolitan King County Council, and on that body, I currently serve as the chair of the County Council's Law, Justice, and Human Services Committee, and it's in that capacity that I believe the City Council invited me to participate in these hearings. King County government is responsible for the operations of the King County Jail, the King County Sheriff, the King County Public Health Department, as well as the Metro, the bus company. So any specific comments that any of you have as it relates to the involvement of any county employee or county, your treatment in a county facility, I'm very happy and encouraging you to be very specific in those comments here. If you want to put them in writing, I will take them or work it out with the city where I can get them and make a commitment to you as the chair of our Law and Justice Committee that we will get back to people. And I, like Jim pointed out, not only do I want to hear the negatives, if you think something positively happened in terms of your interaction with county employees or within county facilities that you thought was, kind of cool or kind of nice, I'd like to hear that. If you have any specific ideas on things we should look at doing in the future in terms of policy changes that would make it better for the people of our community, we would like to hear that. And I'd just like to join my city council colleagues in saying I'm really happy to be here and look forward to hearing from all of you. Thank you. I'd like to hear when you guys comment.
Yeah.
I'll take notes.
I'm Margaret Pagler on the Seattle City Council. I'm sorry I was not able to be here at your last hearing. I had to follow it on the radio and television. You deserve an explanation. I have pneumonia. I had assumed that I would be able to stay this evening, but my doctor this afternoon has scheduled me in for some more tests in an hour, and I don't know whether I'll be able to come back after that. I may have to follow this on the television again. But it's very important to me to hear from you. It was very important for me to establish a council committee that would provide a thoughtful and objective overview of the whole set of issues surrounding the WTO hosting and all of the events. So I'm very confident in the ability of Jim Compton, Nick Licata, and Jan Drago to provide that review.
I'm Nick Licata on Seattle City Council. Thank you. Actually, I think it's really important to hear you as opposed to us, and so I'm not going to go into a long thing. I just want to say, basically, we did something right. We got a big enough room, and we want to hear what you have to say. We are recording it. We have established an accountability review committee. There will be independent investigation as well. And we have subpoena powers if necessary to get the necessary documents that we need. And basically, we want to basically figure out how this event occurred and basically make sure that the events that did occur during WTO never happen again.
I'm Richard Conlon from Seattle City Council. I also will be very brief, simply to say that all members of the City Council are going to be looking very carefully at what happened, what our assessment is, and what things we can do to ensure that the kind of things that happened that were problems do not happen again, and that we plan better for things that might take place in the future, events that we might need to be looking at. I guess I want to say that what we are looking for are the stories that people have to tell of their experiences and the facts that we are going to need in order to be able to assess clearly a good inventory of what exactly happened, what were the steps that took place, what were the actions that actually occurred, and then try to put all those into a context so we'll be able to make a good analysis of them. So that's what I'm looking for. I want to express my appreciation to everyone who is here tonight. Thank you for coming out to give us of your stories and your information. I also want to say to those of us who are watching on television that we are also looking for additional input and encourage people to send written input to the City Council. Let us know what your viewpoints are, what your concerns are, and most of all, what it is, the information and experiences that you have. And Jim gave you the information on the website. If you simply go to the City Council website, that's the easiest way to get information to us. You can also, of course, send letters and other information to the City Council as well. So with that, thank you all for being here.
Hi, I'm Jan Drago on Seattle City Council, and I will be serving on the review committee.
And the piece that I'll be paying particular attention to will be the decision to host WTO in Seattle. How did that decision come to happen? Who made that decision? The council's role as a legislative body has responsibility for developing policy, for fiscal decisions, as well as oversight. The council was not involved in the decision to bring WTO to Seattle, nor did we participate in the planning. And if we contrast that with the process that happened with the consideration of hosting the Olympic Games, the council did have a role in that, and that was to send a resolution of support to move forward. And because of the role that we had a huge public debate about whether or not we should host the Olympics. But because we did not have a direct role in the decision to bring WTO here, we didn't have that public debate early in the process. So one of the things that may come out of our review is that we may want to develop some protocols and set some criteria for how we make decisions to host major events in the city of Seattle.
Good evening. My name is Richard McIver. I'm pleased to be here. Some of the things that I hope that you'll share with us tonight are issues that you faced, problems or abuse that you had or know of, so that when we look at issues, we can take a look at these issues and say, how can we best improve the system to see that they never happen again? Respect is the word we're all looking for. Respect is what we expect to get, and respect is something we must give, so I hope we do that this evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm Peter Steinbrook. Thank you. Thank you. I want to first say thank you to each and every one of you for being here tonight. I very much value your coming here to share with us your perspective, your concerns, your issues, your pain, your anger, whatever it may be. I value it very much, the opportunity to listen to you, each and every one of you, and I will stay here through the end to listen to what you have to say. And I think that more than anything, what you all probably want are answers, and we don't have all the answers right now. We hope to get them. And I particularly have been outspoken on the issues of civil rights. I still believe in the concept of a democratic free society. And there have been challenges to that, and I think that we have to uphold it. And from that perspective, I hope that we will get the answers, the accountability that you all expect. But more specifically, please consider in your comments specific issues related to civil rights that you feel we should undertake a review and investigation of. And I will be taking notes closely. So again, thank you very much for being here.
A couple more things. One important announcement. The restrooms are out that door, apparently, for those who want them. We're hoping to get done in somewhere around the hour of 10 o'clock. But we'll stay here until we've heard from everybody. That's our goal right now. By the way, last time we felt that we heard a lot of questions and we all took notes. Today we've got Irene Namkung from my staff, and if you want to, as you finish, pose a question that we'll write down, it'll become part of our sort of working list. Or if you want to say, add me to the one that says such and such. But if you can give us a concise question that adds to our list of things that we're trying to find out, it will be written down and become part of our working record. Let's go for it. Witness number one, time, I think it says, 1617 33rd is. You're it. Come on. Did you speak previously? Did you speak to a previous hearing?
My first time.
Great.
Mr. Chair, members of the investigation committee, and Honorable Larry Gossett, council member of the King County of my district. I rise before you to express my opinion as a witness of the police agency brutality, inappropriate behavior under the direction of Paul Schell and other political figures. It is clear that the Mayor Schell and other political figures violated the Constitution of the United States under the First Amendment, freedom of speech or of the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble, and the right of the people to be secure in their persons under the Second Amendment. On my own personal experience, on Tuesday, November 30th of 1999 at about 3:45 p.m., I was standing at the corner of Pike and watched the non-violent, peaceful protesters singing, dancing. They were in good spirit. At 4 p.m., several police officers marched down on 4th Avenue, followed by a war tank, if you will. The police officers were well prepared for its plan to brutalize the peaceful protesters and to promote violence. Shooting tear gas, using war batons to beat up innocent citizens, shooting rubber bullets directly to peaceful protesters and innocent citizens is a crime. Violation of the Constitution of the United States is a crime. Peaceful and innocent protests are not a crime. This panel and other investigation bodies should and must recommend prosecution of those police officers who violated the Constitution of the United States and find them guilty for using deadly weapons against the will of the people. Thank you. Mark Cedron should be entitled to a sanctioned hearing and may be disbarred from failing to... Thank you. For failing to conduct finding of facts and negotiate in good faith the release of all peaceful and innocent protests. I recommended the Seattle City Council Public Safety Committee to demand and adopt a declaration of resignation from Paul Schell as mayor of the city of Seattle due to his failure to uphold his oath of office. During the mayor's press conference, the chief of police, Norm Stember, made a statement, I quote, "I want everybody who witnessed the Seattle police action to submit their complaints directly to IIU, and that is Internal Investigation Unit, for proper investigation," close quote. I was amazed that Norm Stember had the nerve to announce such requests publicly. By saying that, on September 13 of 1999, I submitted my written complaint to the Seattle City Council Public Safety Committee in reference to the Seattle police officers' insensitivity, unprofessionally, inappropriate police behavior in terms of racist, prejudiced comments, and calling names. I have not received any explanation from the City Council nor the Seattle Police Independent Internal Investigation Unit.
Mr. Time, I'm sorry, I regret your 3 minutes are up.
Can I please, I almost say.
Finish what you're saying, but
I must say this is a very good example of how city elected officials fail to conduct legitimate or valid complaints against the people, against police department or any other city department. Keep in mind the people, the voters elected you to represent us based on honesty, fairness, responsibilities, and most of all, trust. You ignore complaints and the outcry from Seattle residents in terms of police brutality and unethical behavior. You lost us. It is my hope that this committee will invest its power to find solutions to stop the act of violence,
sorry, your time's up. Right.
brutality, and so forth. I'd like
going
to make
to,
unanimous consent to place this on the
you
for
can
the
give it to
record.
the staff right here.
Thank-
I was remiss in not naming several people so you could be ready. Next list is Bob or Bab. I'm not sure. Okay, Bob, followed by Kent Foray, Reverend Calvin of the Silver Fox Church. I can't read your last name. Lynette Westendorf, John Hoffman. So after Bob is Kent Foray.
I'm going to dispense with the prelude here about how most of my friends I showed this to feared for my safety. When I saw the WTO violence on TV, I saw it as business as usual, except this time they were doing it to the middle class on TV with tear gas. The random and prejudicial prosecution of both innocent and guilty, common, pursue minor crimes and ignore the more major ones because the major ones didn't fit their current agenda. Violent brutality. Well, almost every poor minority person I showed this to expressed concern for me and my safety. And then cover up these crimes, police intimidate witnesses and lie to cover it up. With rare exception, anything or nothing ever happens. The poor and minorities have suffered this abuse for a long time. The people they fear most is not the criminals on the street, it's the criminals in blue. Recent events have made these allegations obvious to all on national TV. This time they did it again with tear gas to the middle class. When I saw it, I felt outrage and some relief. I thought maybe somebody was finally going to start prosecuting these criminals. But now I don't think so. It has been too long and no arrests have been made. How is it that we watch officers of the law, quote unquote, commit felonies on national TV and no one is arrested? Why are they not in jail? Is Mark Sidran a conspirator to these crimes? Guilty of collusion? The police have lied again, and nobody is willing and able to fairly prosecute. Unless something dramatic is done, I don't think I can ever trust the police again. Something is very wrong. We need real justice. Not this crap where they're allowed to run around the streets for 10 years until somebody retires and testifies against them. We need to shatter the conspiracy of the blue. The silence. It's criminal. Within a police state, the police are above the law. And anytime the police are above the law, you have a police state. Forget your civil rights. The police take them whenever they wish. And you've got no real recourse. Lawsuits turn out dismally in this country. Only the best of them ever make it to court, and then the attorney usually takes most or all of the proceeds.
Bob?
Proceeds? Oh. Prosecution? Well, that's a bad joke. Look at the WTO violence. No prosecutions have been done.
Thank you. Ken Foray. Ken Foray, followed by the Reverend Calvin something.
Hello, I'm Kent Foray. That is my real name. I've worked rock and roll industry for 30 years and known as Ken Carrington as my stage name to protect my own name. I want to talk about a health issue for WTO in the year 2000. My parents, as well as my housemate, had, well, let's just use my housemate for an example. Asthma, emphysema, Crohn's disease, triple bypass surgery 9 years ago. now diagnosed with an ulcer, and it's a bleeding ulcer on top of an ulcer. So what she take? She takes a shoebox full of medicine 3 times a day, and it costs her $2,200, $3,800 a month to live. What's up with that? When you want to live and buy stuff that's healthy for you, like vegetables, they cost outrageous prices. When you want to go to fast foods, they make it real convenient at 99 cents to get a burger, so you don't have to eat so healthy. They promote not health, they promote getting sick so they can support the pharmaceutical companies. Well, I'm all for herbal medicine and for neuropathic medicine, naturopathic medicine, and I fight for the legalization of marijuana because I have been a puffer for 30 years, and I've been a closet puffer for 30 years because I'm scared to death to be myself and get arrested for it. And I'm tired of it. I'm tired of having Jimmy the Pothead in jail for 16 years for 60 plants, and half of his plants going to marijuana patients. And meanwhile, Ricky the Rapist is out on bail, waiting to go to court, and he moved to Aruba instead. That's my point, brother.
Reverend Calvin Creech, go by Bo Odyssey of the Silver Fox Coven. I witnessed what was a plague of poo lice, an infestation of poo lice, or police, whichever way you want to pronounce it. I was absolutely terrified, as well as many of the other members of my coven, as gunship helicopters roared overhead, armored tanks roared through our streets, wheeled tanks, and officers shot tear gas in the face and maced people in wheelchairs, cats, yes, cats, children, and I applaud all the demonstrators, what they rose up, all the demonstrators. Is this democracy? Is this the land of the free, where it appeared to be like the cops were having a party? The macho thing, cops macing children. Let us demand the resignation of Paul Schell, the resignation of Mark Sidran. Let's demand the closing of the East Precinct Station and give it to Metropolitan Community Church. I live in constant terror that the police could decide, even if there's nothing going on, to again have a police riot. It hangs over our city like a Damocles sword. We can heal. We can heal our city by demanding and by boycotting corporations and meditating, chanting, drumming, praying, or whatever to our particular deities, and take away the support of the companies by boycott. We can heal, or we can let it go to hell in a handbasket. It is our choice, and spread the word. Bullshit walks, money talks. Support your local co-op groceries. We can overcome. It's up to us. The corporations will fall if we take away our support.
Thank you. Lynette Westendorf, followed by John Hoffman, Rudy Russell, Lyle Kortzel.
My name is Lynette Westendorf. I live and work in Seattle. I work with a city business license. I pay my taxes, I vote, and I'm the block watch captain on my street. Both my husband and son were gassed as innocent bystanders of the peaceful demonstrations during WTO week. During and since then, I have determined to learn as much as possible from print media, TV and radio, the internet, and from people who were there. I have watched nearly all the video of the first community meeting held at the library last week. I am forced to agree with the December 2nd issue of the New York Times that, quote, destruction in Seattle was carried out with near impunity by a relatively small gang of self-proclaimed anarchists while the police were using tear gas nearby to contain what had been a largely peaceful protest, unquote. The tradition of nonviolent demonstration, it has an honorable history from Susan B. Anthony to Gandhi to Martin Luther King. Never should the right of peaceful demonstration have been abused in this country, and never should that right have been abused in the streets of Seattle. Somewhere along the way, the decision was made to divert attention from the real message in the streets, a legal and moral message from a powerful and historic coalition of labor and human rights activists, indigenous peoples, and environmentalists from all over the world. Mayor Paul Schell, whether by negligent inaction or politically motivated malicious action, your leadership failed. Clearly, the police riot, which is what it was intended to divert attention from the heart of the WTO protest. The honorable thing to do would be to resign immediately. Members of the combined police departments involved, something broke down during WTO week, whether the result of poor preparation, negligence, incompetence, malice, or some combination of the above. Why wasn't swift action taken against vandals and looters? Why were your names and faces hidden? Why were peaceful protesters and innocent bystanders attacked? I challenge every honest and moral police officer, and I have no doubt there are many, to find out who were responsible for the breakdown among your ranks and leadership, expose the offenders, and demand accountability. Members of the media, I challenge you to keep the truth alive. In this situation, you are either an arm of truth or an instrument of propaganda. And history will identify both. And also, you might read Molly Ivins this week, too. Members of the City Council, you are no doubt receiving pressure from the Mayor and City Attorney's Office to avoid exposing the city to further liability. But I urge you to ask yourselves, how will this event go down in history? Who will be on the side of right and who will be on the side of wrong? I implore you to expose and hold accountable those responsible for the decisions that resulted in a police riot that trampled literally on peaceful demonstrators and also on their constitutional rights. And if their constitutional rights can be destroyed, so can yours and the rights of all American citizens. Thank you.
John Hoffman.
This is my first-person account.
Let me remind you, as you finish, if you want to pose a question and have it posted up here, it's got to be brief and something that we can write down quickly, but please feel free to give Irene a statement of some, or a question of some kind.
Many of the young people who endured the worst abuses out there in the streets are not here tonight because they do not believe in this stupid process. I met a 16-year-old girl, a 16-year-old woman who was shot 5 times in the back. The next night, she was out occupying the jail, occupying the Westin. She's not here tonight. The cameras did not capture some of the worst abuses. When this is over with, they're going to point to the video of the guy on Capitol Hill. They're going to point to the video of the women in the car, and they're going to say this happened, that happened, and they're going to try to discount the verbal testimony. How often is there a camera right there capturing things? For everything we saw on TV, there were hundreds of incidents, thousands of incidents that were worse that were not captured by a camera fortuitously. When I consider what happened to that 16-year-old woman, I do not consider it so severe that I was gassed twice downtown and then in the Pike's Place Market, that I was shot an inch from my gonads, excuse me. I hope that that police officer saw that projectile bounce off of me with no effect, and I hope it demoralized the hell out of him. I want to talk about the so-called violent anarchists. I want to know what happened before some windows got smashed. These are kids who live in abandoned buildings, who eat out of dumpsters, who have been thrown out of their homes because your system is broken. And I just bet they saw their friends brutalized before any of that stuff happened, and some TV camera was running around going, oh, they're breaking windows. Mark Sidran, who values windows above human beings, who won't let homeless people sit. Mark Sidran and his broken windows, who won't let homeless people sit on the sidewalk. Here's your fucking broken windows, Mark. It's karma. It's karma coming back at you. I was in the military as a medic, and I've been exposed to CS gas, and I want to say that shit they hit us with in the market, it may have been CS gas, but it was not just CS gas. That was some weird shit they hit us with. I have some forms here. I know most people don't believe that lawsuits and claims can work, but I have the city claim form and the county claim form. Money is what these bastards understand. I suggest that if we're not going to actually sue them, that we jam their system with as many claims as possible. Because money is what these bastards understand. Thank you.
Rudy Russell, followed by Lyle Kortzel, John Noe, and WTO Elaine.
My name is Rudy Russell. I was in the march, and I'm Mayor Volunteer Park. I was in the march because, as of the day before, I went to Ron Judd, and I was there with the unions, which are not here today. They're GE, and there's 15 unions involved. They're not here because they're from other states. They don't just make light bulbs, they make the engines, and if your lights go out at 30,000 feet, you're in trouble. The problem is, when we got back to the Seattle Center, we had only had time to unload the truck and put it in the Teamsters truck. At that time, they were already dropping tear gas. Now, I'm not sure, but is this Tiananmen Square we're looking at, or is this Seattle? Now, we have a problem with Tiananmen Square. We are a third world country thanks to Mayor Paul Schell. Maybe he should revisit his position as mayor and return to private life. Maybe he should think about this the next time. Thank you very much, and these are the unions I represent.
Thank you. Lyle?
Oh, if you'd like, let me finish. I'd appreciate it, because I don't do this stuff real good. Why? Why did everyone get so demanding, so resolute during the WTO? Found out City Council gave away $300 million in bond money to private sector development, violation of state constitution, forgetting about the disabled, the elderly, unemployed, and underpaid. This is something we got to look at. We got to revisit the public-private partnerships. Mayor sold Port of Seattle property for $10 a square foot, $50 below market value at Immunex. Then there's the PacMed deals. Then there's the gross mismanagement of both the library and the very low-income housing issue, which seemed to indicate a serious conflict of interest. About 5. Mr. Conlon managed the neighborhood planning process to specifically exclude the interest of those who are making less than $20,000 a year. I'm sorry. I am a Green, and I hope you'd become one again. Discriminatory exclusion based on socioeconomic status, the serious violation against people, and a serious violation of the foundational laws of the land. In other words, discriminatory exclusion is a serious form of violence very common in the United States. Some guy, I don't know where he lives, some island somewhere, bought the political process of the state and took $600 million of taxpayer money for a stadium he could have bought himself. Well, what do you know? $600 million properly spent to come darn close to housing all the homeless in this state and getting those 15,000 kids out of poverty. Now you want to give the homeless $3 million more, but only if they participate in your outcome-based computer tracking system, also totally unconstitutional. This system was derived from the intelligence gathering system which supported the Phoenix assassination programs in Vietnam. This is a blacklisting murder system. There are two kinds of lying, thieving traitors in the U.S. Those who take care of poor folks, those who only think of themselves. Seattle, it's the fourth quarter, 7 minutes left, you're 7 points behind. You need a touchdown, a field goal to pull it out. Avoid living hell on wheels for the next 5 years. That means we need to see $600 million spent on very low-income housing statewide. I think you can do it. You've done it before. Thank you very much.
John Noe, N-O-E. Is John here? John, N-O-E, Noe?
I'm here to address the issue of violence in our society. Not simply the institutional...
Get the mic closer to your face. There you go.
I'm here to address the issue of violence in our society. Not simply the institutional violence committed by the police and by personnel in our King County Jail, but violence also of inmates, violence steered by racism between peoples of all race, violence steered by the most basest condition of humanity, that of greed. There is certainly inherent in the criminal justice system the problem of greed. Obviously, the corporate power structure is building our jails and prisons and supplying it with all its services. Without prisoners, businesses lose money. So let's crowd our jails with as much little guys like me and minorities. Let's create as much boogeyman lurking in the shadows as we can. Let's start a war on drugs, a war on anarchy, a war on even such highly touted and emphasized social disease as domestic violence. I did 14 months in the King County Jail for domestic violence crimes I did not commit. I could not challenge the courts on these because I did not have the money simply to bail myself out of jail and hire a decent lawyer. The wealthy ride a bandwagon of freedom. The poor are persecuted, not simply because of wrongdoing. They are persecuted for their impoverishment. Hard-working fathers like me who support their children and pay taxes, who are conscientious enough to pay their child support, are sometimes railroaded to jail. I grew up in a domestically violent, dysfunctional family. I overcame the horrendous tragedy of acute schizophrenia stemming from my childhood and the social chaos in general. That is the legacy, our obsession, our country's obsession with the Vietnam War left me. And yet, through all that, of which I confess I have been framed, I have been railroaded, I have been backstabbed by liars, by swindlers, by thieves, essentially spiritually murdered, not simply by the greed of the rich, but the greed of the poor, because greed knows no boundaries, no race, no economic status. My motto could be, may you all burn in hell. But I challenge all of us to become human beings. I see no hope sometimes. I'm not sure capitalism itself is capable of giving us that. Our consumer-driven society is just driving us all to the grave, and it's taking nature with us.
The next witness is WTO Elaine, you're listed as, followed by Mark Taylor Canfield, Ruth Liados, Kay Thode. Are you Elaine? Go for it.
Hello, everyone. I've been waiting to speak. Sorry. I would just like to say the question that was, how was the WTO invited here? By antitrust Bill Gates. That's why we have all these problems right now. He should have never been allowed to bring these people here after the government declared him antitrust. And who gave him all those visas for those 3,000 people to come here? Our government did it. And also, okay, as for the bill for the financial district, let's make, can you hear me? Okay. As for the bill for the financial district, let's make sure that the taxpayers don't have to pay for police rubber bullet holes through the windows. Okay? We need to question who is determining all of this money that's going to have to come out of our pockets anyway. Also, I would like to say we need to thoroughly investigate harsh treatment. This is for Larry Gossett, your human rights thing. We need to thoroughly investigate harsh treatment to anyone, and IA needs to also surrender records and complaints that have been covered up immediately now for the safety of everyone here. Okay? Now, I would also like to say that I was a peaceful protester, and I still am. I'm a little radical, but I'm very peaceful. I was gassed for linking arms to keep these basically free slave traders from getting into the Paramount. Woo! Paramount people! Okay? And I would also like to say from November 30th to December 3rd, 6 of some of these little panelists up here, okay, with God knows who else, right along with our mayor, suspended the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. Okay, now I won't ask for show of hands because I know a lot of you realize that you should have listened to what was really going on here before you did what you did. Okay? But I would also like to say that all participants in this action, they are in direct violation, okay? And I think that they need to be evaluated. Now, do the right thing, okay? So in light, my sole job is to get a lot of these people out of office like Paul Sidron, okay, and Mark Schell, that don't understand the constitutional rights. We can't have these type of people in office, okay? We end up with problems like this, okay? And I would just also like to say in reference to violence, our children, 5, 6, 7, teenagers, whatever, black, white, are carrying guns to school, okay? Our children are suffering. And I'll tell you why they're suffering, because of these video games, because of these so-called war heroes that go over and shoot and kill a bunch of people. Now, I'm from Mobile, Alabama, and I'm not going to cry about me being gassed, okay? Because I've been more than gassed and beaten. But I would like to say that welfare cuts are going to kill our children, and that's what's happening. The mothers have been exploited, and we have to work 8 hours a day, then fight for our communities, and then we have to so-called go to work and take care of our children. How are single parents supposed to do all this?
Elaine, excuse me, your time is up.
I would just like to say one more thing. It's also our white people that are also suffering from the welfare cuts. So it's not just me, okay? Thank you. And address the problems now.
Mark Canfield Taylor. Is Mark, excuse me, Taylor Canfield, excuse me. Is Mark here? I'm sorry. Let's go on to Ruth Liados is the next person, unless...
Actually, what I was here to do was to give an exhibit, but I have to put gloves on because these are chemicals that I don't want touching my skin. Hold on.
Did you speak at the last meeting?
Doesn't matter.
Mark, if you want to have something to do, let's go ahead and do it.
I just spoke to him. We're going to give him 30 seconds of our time when we finish, because I'm speaking for, which Ruth Liatos is name, but we're the Raging Granny. Raging Granny. And we're here in solidarity with the people of Seattle, and especially those who got gassed, clubbed, pepper sprayed, curfewed, rubber bulleted, shoved, kicked, and jailed, and if I left something out, we're with them too. And especially with people for exercising their rights of free speech and peaceful assembly.
When violence has been erased, when violence has been erased, how I want to be in that number when violence has been erased, when property stops being king, when property stops being king. How I want to be in that number when property stops being king. When corporate rule is history. When corporate rule is history. How I want to be in that number when corporate rule is history. When people's needs come first of all, when people's needs come first of all, how I want to be in that number when people's needs come first of all. When there is justice on the earth, when there is justice on the earth, how I want to be in that number when there is justice on the earth.
Thank you.
Okay, I've got 30 seconds to show you what the police were using on us. I'm Mark Taylor Canfield. I'm with the Capitol Hill Community Council. They've asked me to serve on their police relations board, and I want to show you some of the evidence that we've collected. These are rubber dowels. These were being shot from some kind of air rifle at approximately 300 feet per second, sometimes at point blank at folks. These are wooden dowels. These were also shot from the same kinds of rifles. The reason I've got gloves on is because some of these have some kind of chemical traces on them, possibly from tear gas canisters or from being used in the same weapon as something that had tear gas canisters in it. Whatever it is, it burns the skin. I found that out personally. We've also got tear gas canisters, and one of them looks like this. And what this is called is a tactical grenade. Okay, this is created by someone at the Defense Technology Corporation of America. We got a serial number NO98CS. This is CS gas. This is pepper spray. All right, but it has some sort of incendiary device because on the bottom it seems to be burned. And I think what it does is it probably sprays out some sort of a fog, which would be a pepper spray fog. We've also got one small little metal dowel, which also was some kind of incendiary device. Okay, it looks like this. It's the same size as the wooden dowels and the rubber dowels, but it's metal, and it's obviously been on fire at some point because it's got burn marks all over it. We believe that these were also shot from the same kinds of weapons. We also have the top of some kind of grenade, which I'm not sure, and of course anybody in the media that wants to look at this stuff, I can give you some good visuals later, but this is the top of a larger grenade. We believe that this was probably a concussion grenade. And if you all looked on the Stranger, could you possibly hand me that? This is the front page of a local magazine called The Stranger, and it shows a canister of what is called CN gas. Okay, CN gas, actually from experts we found out, causes disorientation, dizziness, and it's used against crowds and against the enemy during wartime to disorient them so that they can't communicate or strategize about how to respond to the defensive posture that you are using against them. So this has all been documented, and there are plenty of people in Seattle who are looking into these issues of what chemicals were used against the citizens of Seattle, including how did it possibly poison the water supply since clouds of gas were hovering over the reservoir on Capitol Hill. And the Capitol Hill Community Council is looking into all of these issues so that we can find out what the effects of this gas are. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The next speaker is Kay Thode, followed by Janice Taylor, Trudy Evans, and Jamie, I'm afraid I can't read it, Jamie Litton, perhaps?
My name is Kay Thode. I'm a City of Seattle resident. I was downtown every day from Friday, November 26th through Friday, December 3rd, and I marched in 5 peaceful protests. I was there because I have deep concerns about the damage globalization and the rules of the World Trade Organization have had and are having on the planet and many of its inhabitants. I'm opposed to any form of violence and was saddened by the senseless destruction which took place downtown. However, I believe the lamentable violence against local businesses pales into insignificance compared with the violence perpetuated by a global trade system which maximizes profits through the use of child labor, sweatshops, biopiracy, and the devastation of the environment through the excessive use of irreplaceable resources and the production of pollutants and toxic waste. While I do not condone the property damage inflicted by the looters, I urge you to recognize that many of us wanted to prevent the WTO from engaging in deliberations which would have led to further deregulation of trade and fewer restrictions on the activities of transnational corporations whose pursuit of profit at any cost is looting the planet's resources on a global scale. I hope the concerns of the peaceful protesters are not lost in the debate about who is to blame for the violence which did occur, which I was fortunate not to encounter. Our society needs to move in the direction of developing an alternative, sustainable economic system which is community-based and owned and controlled locally for the benefit of the people rather than for the benefit of transnational corporations.
Janice Taylor, followed by Trudy Evans.
Good evening. As you can see, I am a member of the October 22nd Coalition Against Police Brutality. Please come to our meeting, the 18th, Douglas Truth Library, 23rd and Yesler at 3 p.m. Police brutality is nothing new. My husband and I have been victims of the Tacoma police. I was gassed at a little after 3 o'clock in the afternoon while riding a city bus. When they did just turn the corner off 3rd, there were 2 other buses stuck in a traffic jam. The fools let off canisters, no less than 50 to 75 feet from the buses. There weren't over about a half a dozen people on the street where they were letting them off. Now, on Monday night was the first indication of what any protester was facing, where the VIP buses were coming out from the exhibition hall by the Kingdom. Officers ordered us in their Darth Vader riot gear, so you couldn't identify any of them, that we weren't crossing the street fast enough and we could not block the street for the VIPs, buses. There was a man that wasn't even a protester who was clubbed, knocked down, hit his head on the sidewalk. The National Lawyers Guild observers saw this, and another woman pushed. That is uncalled for. We are living in a police state. I was kicked out of school 41 years ago for saying democracy bullshit and having had my own home invaded in Tacoma in 3 different locations for no valid cause, property stolen. People wake... Lies. I said police brutality's been a problem for a long time, and the only reason this hearing's being held is because it was on television and documented by too many people. We have a book of over 2,000 cases of questionable police killing, and it's adding up more every day. When are people going to wake up that everybody's in danger? Thank you.
Trudy Evans.
Okay, first we were told there would be the WTO here. The streets would be full of protesters, certain streets closed, don't plan on getting through downtown. A celebration of free speech. Then Tuesday came. Police everywhere but along route. Planning we hear now to make mass arrests. There were just too many people out concerned for all people's rights to fairness. So much for a celebration of free speech. After the damage done by admitted anarchists, which the cameras followed but no police could respond to until a bus tire was flattened by ours, a state of emergency was claimed and a curfew. I called the mayor's office to ask what the grounds for the state of emergency was, and I was told it was dark. No one on the streets, serious, no one on the streets knew anything about either of them. The police held no conversation with the protesters, we were told over and over, just waiting for orders. We're supposed to congratulate the restraint and the long hours? Wrong. I believe if they'd been issued live ammunition, they would have been happy to use it, along with their hidden identities. Oh, they were supposed to have names visible, their clubs hitting the ground like a bunch of ignorant bullies, their chemicals, their peacekeepers, and their guardians. Oh, but we should celebrate their restraint. Why? Because they didn't have real bullets? There's no celebration. It doesn't take a weatherman to see which way the wind blows, and it stinks coming off the Nazis in the streets. The heroes are the people willing to stand up for our freedom. And the Seattle Fire Department for refusing to be inducted to use the fire hoses on people. Yeah. Vandalism, though bad for those affected, is a non-violent American way of protest. Did you ever hear of the Boston Tea Party? Our right to bear arms should be fortified, not reduced. It was to fight the King's Army as it came after you or your countrymen. That's why it's in the Bill of Rights. Now the King's Army has weapons of all size and destruction, and we're supposed to just roll over and let them. And the nerve, if people had just dispersed when they were told to, then the Gestapo could take care of the real protesters, everything would have been fine. No. Without warning, the SS attacked everyone, driving them beyond what they named as boundaries, hoping everyone would quit watching and let them spray, beat, and shoot at people. Oh, and not forget the SPD cars who drove right into people sitting on the streets. I think the veterans of America should be outraged at the horrors they've suffered for our freedom that is compromised on a daily basis in the United States. This is America. If you wish it was Singapore or China, Iran, Russia, etc., move there. Don't bring it here. Luckily, the WTO conference was here in good old mellow Seattle, or the city would have been on fire. The National Guard should have been here to protect people from the police.
Any Seattle police that want to go to King County are the cream of the Nazis and should be on their way out with Third Reich Reichardt. Jail the Nazis. If it had all been handled like it was Thursday and Friday, there would have been no trouble. I'll probably be met by the Red Guard, Contras, and Gestapo on my way out and at home, but I say question authority. Power to the people. Remember, just following orders was the excuse at Nuremberg. Let freedom ring!
Jamie Lutton, followed by Clarabelle Hausfrau. Jamie Lutton's followed by Clarabelle Hausfrau, Donald Post.
Excuse me. After such eloquence, though I didn't agree with all of it, I find myself almost unable to speak. I do want to say that Lynette Winnestroff over there, the blonde woman who spoke, she is the best person, speaker here, though you were all good, because she spoke as someone who saw her loved ones go down to tear gas as bystanders. I wanted to address this to Peter Steinbach, your last name, I'm sorry. You want to talk about civil rights? I have been telling my employees for 13 years that the police are not their enemy and that they're mistaken or paranoid. And I dated a cop once. I'm going to admit it, all right? And I have police officers in my shop. I own a bookstore. My name is Jamie Lutton. I own Twice Sold Tales. Some of you might know me. And I know people on the city council because you guys helped me save my business from Sound Transit, the ones who took my side. And you were very nice to me. You know who you are. And the ones who didn't work for me, well, I know who you are too, and we won't go there. And I just want to say that I want to know who is responsible. I want to know the names of who is responsible for hurting the protesters up to my home and my neighborhood twice and tear gassing bystanders twice without reading the Riot Act, without announcing a curfew. People coming out of the bars, people coming out of bookstores, people coming from trying to change their tire, people trying to just get home from their college classes, people who are out on the streets till 2 in the morning. My store is open till 2 in the morning. People trying to live their lives on Capitol Hill. It is the highest population in the north of San Francisco, the highest population neighborhood north of San Francisco. It has canyon-like streets, apartments. Who the hell thought tear gas was a good idea there? Come on, who thought tear gas was a good idea there? I have to tell you, I'm not going to say anything about the WTO. Other people have. I'm not going to say anything about the protesters. Other people have. I'm going to ask people here, this board, find out for me the name of the man or the woman who said it was a good idea to herd protesters up to my neighborhood and tear gas them without reading the Riot Act, without declaring curfew, because I want that man's metaphorical head. And I'm not going to say anything about a Nazi state. I'm not going to say anything about anything like that because that's people's opinions that aren't mine. I'm here just to say to Peter and to Richard McIver and to everybody else here, we will remember this day when voting day comes. And my money is going to the candidate who listens to me today. And did you hear, and by the way, my gay and lesbian customers, my transsexual customers, all my student customers, my radical customers thought you herded the protesters up there because it was the kind of neighborhood. Tell me I'm wrong. Thank you. Thank you for doing this.
Clarabelle. After Clarabelle is Donald Post, then John Persack.
Hello, good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the City Council, honored guests. My name is Clarabelle Hausfrau, and I'm just a middle-aged, middle-class housewife, and therefore extremely militant.
I'm a second-generation property owner of the city of Seattle. I attended my first protest demonstration in 1964 when I was a student at Stanford University. On the afternoon of November 30th, 1999, I had just finished marching from the city center to the Paramount Theater with thousands of Union men. I always like to march with big, strong men who have hard hats. The march was absolutely peaceful. It's better with a Union man. As I passed a contingent of policemen during the march, I thanked them, as I always do, saying, "Thank you for taking care of us." They looked at me as if I had said something sarcastic. But when I got to the Paramount Theater, I saw two things which frightened me. I saw 4 very large policemen sitting on 4 very large horses, and all 8 of them were wearing gas masks. I didn't even know they made gas masks for horses.
Pay attention, Mr. Compton! Don't talk through speakers!
Then I saw a young man dressed in black with a bandana over his face, and he was wearing a gas mask too. At that moment, I turned to my friend and I said, "This does not inspire me with confidence. It only takes one person to start a riot. Let's get the heck out of here." The rule is, you see, my dear friends, when there is trouble, melt into the crowd of spectators and disappear. It is the first rule of protest marching. I have been at this for a very long time. But there were no spectators. There were only parade marshals, lots of them wearing orange hats. It was, so sorry. Thank you very much.
I'm Don Post, and I'm not sure I can follow all this anger here. Appreciate the opportunity to come up and speak, and this is an area, I guess, where we are practicing free speech. I come from the other side of the coin. I volunteered for 2 weeks at the WTO, and there were a hell of a lot of great people that came here from all over the world. And that first week, when I drove them here to their hotel room stuff, they were all impressed about American volunteerism and the ability, the rights of free speech here and all this. And boy, did Seattle give a good end to this year, the century, and the millennium. Now, the second week, the week of the WTO, I worked with security at the conference center. I heard the protesters marching during the day of Tuesday, and I heard the loud noise and everything from all of the protesters that were in town. And with 40,000 of them, there's going to be a lot of noise. And I heard a lot about free speech when I was standing at the door letting people in and out. From my standpoint, the officers that I was involved with were very respectful of people's rights. I'm not saying everybody was, maybe, but they were from my standpoint. And I can't speak for the rest of the volunteers. They'd have to speak for themselves. I don't know that there's many of them here. Seems like most of them here have had some other confrontation or meeting with the police. From what I could see, from where I stood, they were doing a good job. I don't know when it went wrong. The first afternoon when I left work, I was denied the right of free passage from the Sheraton to a bus stop by the nonviolent protesters. They didn't hurt me, but they wouldn't let me through, and they pushed me up against the wall of the Sheraton. Okay, I won't take much more time. Once again, I come from the other side. I believe in freer trade. I believe in the WTO with changes. They need to change, but we have to have a forum where all the countries can come together and make commitments and decide what's going to be done, because you cannot live within your own country anymore. It's a world economy. It is a world of nations, and we all have to talk and get together.
Thank you. John Persick is next. He's followed by Charlotte Quinn, Mark Roast, Robert Skillstad.
Well, if we live in a world economy, I guess that means we need world solidarity and world democracy, eh? Now, I'm here to talk about three things. One, reparations. Two, accountability. And three, social and industrial democracy. Reparations. The 6 people on this council that endorsed the state of emergency that the mayor called for, they need to be recalled, period. And why is Ron Sims and Gary Locke not here? Because they are also responsible. National Guard and the King County Sheriff. What we saw in the streets and what we heard about in the jails is a manifestation of something that's been going on in Seattle for a very long time, especially among people in the African American community. I'm going to ask the City Council that they ask the school board to turn over the old Coleman School over to the African American Heritage Museum and Cultural Center as part of reparations for all of that, including what happened this last week. Now, as far as the democracy and accountability part, this is what I propose as a solution. One, a community-elected police review board with the power to subpoena and prosecute. Each neighborhood would get to elect one. A popularly elected council that would guide the policies of the police department on all levels. And how do we enforce that? Well, we have an election process, but we also have the labor unions. If every labor union in town got together and elected somebody from their local, or if anybody who was even non-union wanted to get together and elect somebody and form what was called an oversight council, if the city government and these councils didn't do what was mandated by the people of the community, then they could just simply shut down all non-essential services in the city. That's called economic democracy. And that would definitely scare folks, because that's direct accountability, because let's face it, the people that control this city, it ain't necessarily just the government, it's the people that own the companies in this town. So that's what I propose as a solution, and we have a referendum process that we can use that can also be used for recall petitions. Thank you.
Are you Charlotte?
Yeah, I'm Charlotte Quinn.
Followed by Mark Rose, Robert Skillstad, and Roberta Kenyon, please.
My question is, how is it so easy for you to take away my civil rights as an American citizen? I live in the no protest zone, and I have for 7 years. For a few days, you decided, you're not saying that it was anything to do with you, Ms. Drago, but it did have something to do with the Seattle City Council, that there was a civil emergency called. You're supposed to be the ones who decide that that can be done after the mayor says so. Am I wrong here? From the Seattle Municipal Code, you do have something to do with the civil emergency being called. No comment? Okay, no comment. So, I think one of the reasons my rights were taken away so easily is that you, the Seattle City Council, have been doing it all along, starting with a poster ban, saying that I don't have the right to post my political opinions. This is sort of unique to Seattle, and I really don't know how it happened, but the more I read, the more I'm outraged. Yeah, that's right, Mark Sidran. We can name names here. The Seattle City Council also passed a series of civility laws, what you call civility laws, saying that people, mostly aimed at the homeless, but not being able to legally say that. I think they made some really weird laws like no sitting laws, pedestrian interference laws, and these laws have led, I think, to an increased amount of police brutality. Because as a downtown resident, a lot of times what I see is a policeman harassing a homeless person, which is really incredibly harsh. It's like these people really have no rights and you're taking their rights away more and more. And I think that you really have to look at yourselves, not point the finger outside of the Seattle City Council, for now anyway. So I've been, let's see, basically I want to say that the police should really be held accountable for what they've done. And we do need to see names named, like this woman said earlier. We want to see names. We want to see which police officers are brutalizing others. We want to see them punished. We want to see them fired. And I think that has to be done. One last thing. A couple of good slogans I've heard this week that I think you should hear. The right to shop is not more important than the right to freedom of speech. And broken windows can be repaired, but our faith in the Seattle Police Department cannot be repaired that easily.
Let me give the numbers so you know where we are. There are about 150 people signed up. Mark Rose, are you here as number 20? Robert Skillstad is next, 21. 22 is Roberta Kenyon. Mark Rose, R-O-S-S-T, is Robert Skillstad here?
Okay, I'm here today to say a few words.
Closer to the mic. Yeah.
I'm here today to say a few words in defense of the Constitution. As a veteran of the United States Air Force, I took an oath to uphold and defend the Constitution of the United States. And I understood that that commitment might have entailed extreme sacrifice, to include the possibility of giving my own life or taking the life of another human being. I believe the Constitution warrants extreme commitment. I expect a similarly extreme expression of commitment to the defense of the Constitution from my government, be it city, county, state, or federal. The Declaration of Independence states that we are, quote, endowed with certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it. In the wake of the WTO protests and government response towards those protests, I am plagued by doubt about my city's commitment to secure liberty and to defend the rights set forth in the First Amendment. I cannot abide the proposition that an arcane law pertaining to the state of a civil emergency abrogates the full force and effect of our national Constitution. The establishment of a perimeter beyond which peaceable protest could result in an arrest in accordance with state law is not only unconstitutional, but unconscionable. Furthermore, to those protesters who sought to limit or block the free expression of ideas contrary to their own, I must say your actions were equally unconstitutional and unconscionable. Finally, globalization is an emerging reality. Whether one views it skeptically or optimistically, it will impact all of us. We must encourage a healthy, open public debate. We must not let a small, unlawful minority usurp our right to speak freely on this or any other issue, whether they hide behind a mask, riot gear, or an office of public trust. Thank you.
Number 22 is Roberta Kenyon. Sorry, are you Mark?
That's Robert Kenyon.
I'm sorry. Robert Kenyon, number 22, followed by Ben Schroeder, number 23.
Yeah. My name is Robert Kenyon. I'm a locked out steelworker from Spokane, Washington.
We've been locked out for the last 14 and a half months. We thought we'd come over here and fight the WTO in a peaceful manner. I've been living in the streets for the last week during the ministerial meeting, so I got to see a lot of shit. One morning we left 420 Denny. We were going down the street. There was a lot of young people with us, and we were taking our banners and our flags and protesting equipment. The police pulled up with their weapons, surrounded us, took all our stuff away from us, arrested 3 people. I don't know why. One of the police officers stood and talked to me like he was my buddy. I think he thought I wasn't with them. I didn't have any long hair. I didn't have any earrings. And I was older. We worked our way down to the Denny Park. We left there after it got light. And there was probably about 200 of us. We got into this oddly shaped intersection where there was multiple streets coming in. We were blocked by a couple hundred of these white or black cops, robo-cops. And they told us to disperse. We knew what was probably going to happen. One of my friends, we gave each other a hug. There were 2/3 of us, we stood back. There were standbys. The cops then pounced down on these people. They hit them with their belly clubs. They shoved them, knocked them to the ground. One person, his face was run into the ground with his cop's knee and held there. His glasses were shoved up above his eye. A couple other people were grabbed by the hair and jerked around like rag dolls. One of these was a young girl. Her hair went down to the middle of her back. This one cop jerked her around for a while and drug her off to the side and jerked her around some more before he put the cuffs on her. They threw everybody into the small paddy wagon and a bus. At that time, I noticed a bunch of National Guards coming in behind us. I knew they were going to sandwich everybody. A few of us managed to slip off to one side. That was the last time I seen those people until after they got out of jail. I was up on Capitol Hill when everybody got gassed up there.
Robert, I'm sorry, time's up. You can finish. Yeah, thank you. If you have a concluding remark tonight, please go ahead. We can grant extensions.
I was up on Capitol Hill. I think it was Wednesday night. I'm not sure because all the days they kind of blend together, the days and nights. There was a couple hundred of us just standing around. The cops that were up there playing with their guns. I mean, it sounded like a war, a real war zone. A couple of kids, they tried to turn over this garbage can and started on fire, but the people there, the people that lived there, came out and physically stopped these kids, put this garbage can back where it belonged, and told them we didn't want this shit happening in our neighborhood. The cops, we didn't do anything wrong. They started tear gassing us. We had to run out of there. We couldn't see what we were doing or anything. And one of the businesses there allowed me in his place and where I got cleaned up.
Robert, I'm sorry, but there are other people whose time has to be extended. 23 is Ben Schroeder. 24 is Celia Ilario. 25, David Reed. Is Ben here? Ben? Let's go on to Celia Ilario, number 24.
Good evening. My name is Celia Ilario, and I'm a publicist and a grassroots organizer. I've worked with a number of organizations over the last 10 years and in preparation for the week of the WTO, ranging from the Rainforest Action Network to the United Steelworkers of America. It's really hard to condense what I have seen because I was in the streets all week and I've also been viewing and logging videotape over the last 48 hours. So to give you 3 minutes of a snippet is kind of tough, but I'm going to lead with a couple questions for Irene to write up, including I'd like to know who hired and who knew about Confidential Data Services Mobile Shredding Unit, which was parked outside of the Public Services Building at the beginning of last week for about 4 hours. Some of you are looking puzzled, some of you not. Maybe you know about this, maybe you don't. But they had on this mobile unit a bunch of shredders, and there were boxes and boxes of things that were brought down and shredded all day at the beginning of last week. And I'm curious who hired them, who paid for them, who knew about, yeah, obviously, what were they shredding, and who knew about that. One of the other questions that I have is, what is it going to take to create a space so that the municipal bus drivers can come forward and safely tell their story? They drove many, as you may know, they drove around many of the police officers in the morning in preparation for the 30th, and they have some very interesting stories to tell if you happen to meet one in a pub or what have you, about the kind of language and mood and orientation that the police were in and the way they addressed and talked about their coming days, tasks. The thing I want to share with you is something that I witnessed, which was on Wednesday morning at the corner of, I believe, 6th and Pike, but I'm not positive. I know it was 6th and something. I was standing on the corner talking to a reporter from the Wall Street Journal and a reporter from the Post who were facing me and had their back to the corner that I was viewing. There were 4 or 5 policemen on horses and some riot cops massing behind them. And there were some people drumming on one corner. We were milling around on another corner. Things were fairly peaceful. It didn't seem like too much was going on. I noticed that there was a gentleman who I later found out was Victor Minotti of the International Forum on Globalization, which is a policy organization. He was standing in the corner addressing a few people. He had just come from a meeting from a meeting with Charlene Barchevsky's office about the global free logging agreement. He was merely addressing a few people on the corner, giving an update about his meeting. 6 or 8 cops running 2 by 2 in riot gear with their batons out, charged across the street at full speed, tackled the crowd of people, the 10 people that were the crowd that were listening to him. They fell away, they grabbed Victor only and dragged him away. Later I was talking with a journalist from the UPI who confirmed that he heard 2 undercover policemen saying, "That guy over there, that's our guy." And he looked into the window of the bagel shop and noted that they were talking about Victor Minotti. Didn't think too much about it. He just met Victor at a press conference. We pieced it together. So another question for Irene would be, who else was giving orders here? Who were the levels of plainclothes people that were on the streets? And who was giving the orders between them and the riot police, who were then systematically grabbing people? And the last thing I'll say in closing is that I've been involved in both the planning and execution of numerous direct actions over the last 8 years. Small actions that involve 20 to 30 people and mass actions involving hundreds and thousands of people. In those actions, and as we tried to do on the streets, we had police liaisons. We had people whose job it was to interface with the police, find out what was going on. Why didn't that happen? Why weren't dispersal orders given? Why weren't they given loudly enough so that people who maybe wanted to leave with their children before the chemical warfare started could get out? And why were the efforts that went on with groups like the Ruckus Society to meet in advance with the police and the mayor's office not closer scrutinized by the council and other people who could have actually averted all of this? So those are just some of my questions.
Celia, thank you. Just a minute. Celia made good use of asking Irene to put questions up. I'd encourage you, if you have questions you'd like us to post and have for our future use, that you do that. Next is David. Is that you? Did we miss you along the way here? Go ahead. That's fine.
Okay, thanks. There are a lot of people that came in from out of town for the protests from around the country and around the globe. And I was really proud to tell them that they didn't have to worry about the Seattle police, that as a lifelong Seattle resident, that as police forces go in this country, they're pretty well behaved. And it was very embarrassing to have the display of force that was shown. I marched from the Teamsters rally from Memorial Stadium. The media said it was 20 or 30,000 people, so they must have been followed by another 30 or 40,000 members of the press and legal observers. It's the only thing that I saw, as everyone else is testifying, is horrible police abuses. And, you know, all I can say is that yes, a bunch of very peaceful protesters were attacked with no warning, no anything. I was included in that. And, you know, these protesters were highly trained to not riot on a level of training that we've never seen before. I mean, for weeks and weeks, there were training sessions that were going on. The police were trained for a riot, and that's exactly what you got, okay? Now, if anything's going to come of this disaster or fiasco in Seattle, that's going to come of the review of all these events, we need to find out exactly who was ordering what. I talked to a lot of police officers over a course of time, and everyone had indicated, all the police officers had indicated that the response to peaceful demonstrators was to let them get cold and tired, and they would eventually go home. That did not occur. So we need to find out who ordered these attacks on innocent protesters. An honest effort must also be made to locate, identify, and prosecute the individual officers who assaulted some of the innocent citizens and protesters, such as the ones that we saw. I mean, an honest effort on the council's part to find these people. And furthermore, we need to make a policy in this city, at the very least, if not the county too, that all police on protest lines from here on out must have visible identification. I walked right up to the line and tried to ask the officers their names. They refused to identify themselves. They know they were wrong. Anyway, if that much policy can come out of it, at least something's gotten done. Thank you. Thank you.
Number 25 is David Reed, followed by 26, George Backman. 27 is John Murray.
I'm David Reed from Spokane, Washington, a locked-out steelworker. I headed down to Denny Park on Wednesday, December 1st. There was about 100, 200 nonviolent sea turtles and protesters. And myself, we left the park around 7:30, marched 2 blocks to the West Lake intersection, where we were stopped by a police lineup. We stopped and stood there for a couple of seconds or less. I heard a muffled megaphone. I was grabbed from the right side, thrown to the ground, smashed into the back, handcuffed, lifted to my feet, and taken to the curb. Then I felt the knee into my back again, and it was very, very painful. I asked the officer why I was cooperating. I looked around to see people, blood coming out of their face, other people being thrown around, people being drugged around. I looked at him and I said, "Hey, I'm cooperating. Why are you doing this?" I was very lucky. I spent 5 days in jail. The treatment in King County was horrifying. My rights were violated. No phone calls, no lawyer, no medical treatment for 3 days. I want to thank all the supporters outside the jails. For without that support, a lot of us wouldn't have made it. I know I wouldn't have made it. I was going crazy in there. And every time I looked out and I saw the supporters out there dancing and drumming, it gave me the courage to go on. This is the way we're going to do it, though. All of us coming together, sticking together, and not letting them get away with this crap. Thank you.
My name is George Bacon. I'm the owner of the Seattle Gay News and an editor and a longtime activist in the city of Seattle. First of all, thank you to the council members and thank you to the audience. I find these hearings, to quote Mr. Steinbrück, riveting. I'm extremely angry, however, my anger has not abated. In fact, it's increased. I was gassed as a spectator. I wasn't involved in the protests, and I was sick as a dog for 4 days. I guarantee you something was in the tear gas. I discovered yesterday there's a test for residual chemical agents that can be given, and the Mason Clinic, who are my medical providers, are researching how to give it to me. And I think it's very critical that we understand clearly what happened and why people like myself were sick as a dog for 4 days after being gassed. I'm extremely concerned about the police rioting, and I have to give you a backdrop. This is the third police riot in a decade that I've witnessed. These things have happened on Capitol Hill before. However, the attention given to the police misconduct in those cases was minimal compared to this week. I'd like to address the issue of why the cops always push the riot to Capitol Hill, and it's very simple, because that's where the pinkos and the commies and the undesirables live, and let's get really honest about why they do it. It's the neighborhood where they think they can get away with beating people up, and there will never be more than a question asked. And nobody cares. Exactly. Well, this is the new Capitol Hill, and the condos are $300,000, and a lot of people care. I was extremely unhappy with the suspension of civil liberties. At heart, I'm a civil libertarian. The Constitution and the Bill of Rights are not jokes to me. They're the bastion of the democracy I cherish. And the way it was done was clumsy and ineffective. I wondered, would I be able to distribute my newspaper on Friday having to drive through downtown? There were unanswered questions all around. The other thing that concerns me is the truth of the matter is the police were out of control. They were insubordinate and insurrection, and it is not okay. In America, the civilians control the military, the civilians control the National Guard, and the civilians should be controlling the police force. I've never elected a policeman in my life, but I have elected city council members and a mayor, and they abdicated their responsibility to control the police department in Seattle, and that makes me very angry. I would like to deplore the jail. I went down to some of the protests, but I wasn't jailed, and in my worst fantasy, I never conceived of people being jailed as political prisoners in the city of Seattle, hold 4 and 5 days without medical attention, benefit of attorneys, and any civil process. And it's a total breakdown. It's absolutely disgraceful, and it's the last place in America I thought that would ever happen. In lieu of a question and to close my remarks, I would like to support the call for not a civilian review board, but elected police commissioners who control the police department in the city of Seattle. It's true in other cities. We obviously need it here. We need a commission elected by the citizens who run the police department, because obviously the police have been out of control before, and this will happen again without civilian control of the police department. Thank you.
The next speaker is John Murray, followed by Aria, and then there'll be a video presentation. Is John Murray here? Okay, how about Aria? Okay, then let's, are you ready to go with the video? Okay, then Victoria Garvey.
My name is Aria.
Who are you?
Aria.
Okay, you're up.
Where is it? My name is Arya. I'm originally from Iran. I came to the United States 11 years ago. I'm a U.S. citizen now. I have held many jobs so far, in many of which I have been discriminated for my national origin. Despite all my effort, I have failed to maintain a job. All my effort to fight for my rights have failed. In spite of my wish, I'm unemployed and homeless as of today. I'm one among many of the victims created by corporate greed that has no respect for human rights. I am among many who would like to see justice and human rights improved. No to corporate rule, no to corporate media. Long live people. I love you all.
Mr. Baumgartner, are you here to do the video presentation, or do you want to just start it?
Go ahead.
Well, let's go ahead. Is Victoria Gentry available? We'll hear her first, and then go ahead. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Victoria, and I own 2 businesses on 2nd Avenue. And there's a lot of different issues here that I could talk about, but I feel like I have my primary responsibilities to my employees are their safety and health and well-being, and environment that fosters their economic prosperity as well as personal growth and education. And on Wednesday the 1st, 2 male and 1 female police officers in uniform came into my business, the incorporation, and they said that there was a curfew in effect and that we had to close and the staff had to be out of downtown by 7 p.m. So we closed at 6 p.m. and the employees and the customers left. 2 of the male employees were walking home, and at 6:15 they were trying to make their way to Capitol Hill, and there were no buses available for them to get there. So as they walked up 3rd towards downtown, at 3rd and Stewart, they were hit with tear gas and were pushed back by the officers towards Belltown. They tried to go around another way and get up the hill, and they were unable to, and they had to walk up the hill on Denny. The one gentleman began vomiting and having difficulty breathing. Both of the gentlemen have compromised immune systems. The one gentleman has AIDS, and since then he has symptoms of pneumonia, and his doctor told him that he's not the only person with AIDS that was exposed to the gas that is having these symptoms. This is life-threatening for him. I feel like it's my responsibility for their safety during business hours, and this was during business hours. They were instructed to leave, and then they were gassed on their way home, so I hold the police responsible for their injuries. The rest of the employees of both companies had experienced loss of wages. The customers were not afraid of the protesters, as I've discussed this at great length in the salon environment there. They were afraid of the police. And so I feel like they inhibited the economic prosperity of the employees as well for their commission on their sales and for their salon services. So I'm here to speak for them. As far as the educational commitment that I feel like I have to them, I guess I could thank the police department for radicalizing the staff in a way that I've never been able to in the past 3 years. And so I feel like I want the police to pay for what they did, and not just for the loss of business for the employees, but definitely for the health benefits. And if anything happens to their health that's a long-term effect, then they're definitely going to pay dearly for that. Thank you.
We're still working on the video presentation. Is Michelle Grant available? That's number 31, followed by Harriet Walden, I think it is, number 32, and Cynthia Wobble. So next would be Michelle Grant. Is Michelle here? Okay.
Hi, my name is Michelle Grant. My husband, Thomas Boutel, and my 6-month-old daughter and I live at 15th and Roy on Capitol Hill. My husband and I operate a small software company out of our home. We pay our taxes and we pay our mortgage every month, and we vote. We live about 5 blocks uphill from the intersection where the police stopped their advance on Broadway on Wednesday night, the 1st of December. I want to know a few things. First, I want to know, constitutional issues about a no-protest zone aside, why Mayor Schell declared a no-protest zone that ended at the freeway and then let his police force advance onto Capitol Hill. As eyewitnesses and victims have related in this and other forums, the police in the end were attacking uninvolved residents in my neighborhood. I want to know why the mayor did not stop his police. Second, I want to know what chemical agents were used against protesters and the uninvolved residents of Capitol Hill. I want to know what landed in the reservoir and what I may have ingested because it landed there, especially since I'm still breastfeeding my 6-month-old baby. Pepper spray, police-issued tear gas, or the military-issued tear gas some people are alleging, whatever, I want full disclosure of the composition of what was used on my neighbors. Third, I want to know how I should explain to my daughter the actions of the police when I took her downtown for a day of peaceful protest on November 30th. One minute we were dancing in the street, and the next minute we saw thousands of people running from tear gas and rubber bullets on 4th Avenue. We heard detonations, gunfire, and screams. There were children and babies in that peaceful crowd of 30,000 people. They weren't breaking windows. Fourth, I want to know how a few broken windows justify the actions of the police. You can't commit violence on a building, but the police answered, some people say caused, the police answered vandalism with violence on people. The mayor and the media keep talking about financial hardship on downtown businesses. Well, how about the hardship caused by police injuring people without warning and without cause inside and outside the no-protest zone? Window breaking is vandalism. The physical harm caused by tear gas, rubber bullets, and batons is real violence. So finally, I want to know that the accountability doesn't stop with these hearings. There are at least 3 people who need to admit that what they did was just plain wrong. Those people are Mayor Schell, the Chief of Police Norm Stamper, and King County Sheriff Dave Reichert. There was violent police action against nonviolent protesters and innocent people, and these men and the local media need to say so. That's what they need to say. I'll repeat it and they can quote me. There was violent action against nonviolent protesters and innocent people. I want accountability, not healing and moving on. I did my healing by distributing 1,000 leaflets on Broadway and Pine Street last week, asking my neighbors on Capitol Hill to write down their accounts of police misconduct and send them to the mayor and the city council. What I want is a full, public, independent investigation that ends in the city paying a lot of money to a lot of people as reparations for severe violations of civil rights and human rights. And in order to see this done, I continue to urge people, as I did with my Got Gas leaflets, to write your officials and the ACLU. Paper mail is better than email. Send copies to the newspapers and the TV stations because they still aren't reporting it right. I want my daughter to grow up in a Seattle where she doesn't have to be afraid of the police.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think we're going to try the video presentation, and I'm told they can dim some lights. Is that right? Is somebody out there that could dim some lights, make it easier? That'll help.
At any rate, I'm Trevor Baumgartner. I'm lucky enough to present this on behalf of the Independent Media Center. Just to let you know, they're screening a five-part series Thursday, 6 p.m. and 8:30 p.m. at the Parlor Room, 163 South Jackson, and this weekend, Friday and Saturday, at the Independent Media Center. Saturday, Michael Franti from Spearhead will be speaking, doing some spoken word there. So anyway, here is this was put together today. I haven't seen it yet, but a woman mentioned a man named Victor Minotti and how he was kidnapped by the police. That's on this video. It's after it rewinds. The audio is really important, so it's really important to focus and keep your applause and boos down, and focus your ears and your eyes. Yeah, okay. We're going to work on the focus. If you just be patient with us. We're just working with this machine here. So, yeah, well.